Estamos tratando aquí algo distinto en impactoestelar.com. Evi Morales aquí. I'm going to be jumping between English and Spanish porque tengo un invitado especial aquí hoy. His name is KB from KB Wrestling Reviews. And he's a wrestling reviewer and I got him here live. Say hello, man.
Hola.
Oh, you're going to be trying Spanish?
No.
Well, yeah,
I haven't taken Spanish since college.
Well, KB here is a wrestling reviewer, basically, just like me. He's actually been my inspiration, believe it or not. This guy started emulating, in a sense. So we're going to be talking about his new book, The Complete 2002 Monday Night Raw, I believe it's called, or something around that line.
Yes, it's KB's Complete History of Monday Night Raw 2002. So about as wordy as you can get. So
yeah, man, you watched all of 2002 Monday Night Raw. That's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, and I'm still recovering from it. It was it was bad. There are parts of it that hold up, but for the most part, it is every bit as bad as you remember.
It's kind of funny because I've been watching 2002 SmackDown on my time. Been watching specifically around the time Paul Heyman took charge of SmackDown, and you had all the SmackDown 6 basically, and I don't know, it's been pretty good. It hasn't really hit its stride quite yet. Like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit just got there, but you know, I've heard some crazy great things from there, and you're telling me Raw was the polar opposite.
Raw was absolutely terrible. It becomes the Triple H and Shawn show, yet Shawn doesn't actually go all year. He wrestles once at the very end, and it's slow. The first half of the year, they have no idea what they're doing. Or no, actually scratch that. They know what they're doing, it's just really boring. Basically, Austin leaves, the NWO comes in, no one cares about the NWO at all. To the point where at one point they had two people in the group who didn't wrestle, and two people in the group who did wrestle. That was the whole team. Then Triple H comes over and it becomes his show when they give him a world title out of a briefcase. Never beat anybody for it, but remember, he is every bit as great as Flair, apparently. And then, when over on SmackDown, you have Cena, Batista, Orton, and Mysterio debuting within about 2 months of each other, it's kind of hard to care about what Raw is doing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because around the time I started watching, like, you had Cena, Batista, and Orton, all three showing up around the same time on SmackDown.
Yep. Yeah, the OVW class from that time is legendary. When you also had Shelton Benjamin in there, also Rico, who you might remember as the Comedy Goon, was probably the best prospect of them all at the time.
He blew my mind. Like, I've seen like maybe 2 or 3 matches, and the dude moves like a total champ.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. If you ever get the chance to watch him down in OVW, he is a ring general in every sense of the word, which you would never expect from someone like him, but he is outstanding with it.
Yeah, but you know, you started watching since you covered all of 2002, and you know that's when the first brand extension took place, and before it, you had like this weird time where they just didn't know what they were doing. How do you feel about the whole brand extension showing up? Did you think it really sort of like put everything in place and like set a direction for everything?
I think they tried to, but if you look at the draft back then, you had pretty much everybody was on SmackDown. The draft for the WWF for Raw put they had Undertaker, the NWO, Kane. Just what in the world are you supposed to get out of that? Rock was gone. Triple H was on SmackDown eventually once he lost the Undisputed title. Austin was there and then left shortly thereafter. There's no one on that watch. They finally started to balance it out a little bit when they sent people like Jericho over, and Triple H came over as well. That helped a ton, but it was still just, it was a disaster. Like, absolutely terrible.
Yeah, there was around June, July. They had kind of something like we saw this year with the Superstar Shakeup, except they went for like 2 months, I think. With guys just jumping from one show to another.
Yeah, very much so. And it really just came off like they had no idea what they were doing and just making it up as they go, which is the last thing you want to do on a show like this. It just wasn't entertaining. It wasn't balanced at all. The SmackDown guys were all the young, talented guys who were having these great matches where really, like you said with the SmackDown 6, you could throw any combination of those guys together and it was going to be gold. And I mean, over on Raw, you had Lesnar, who was still incredibly green, Rob Van Dam, Booker T. That's about it. I mean, Van Dam and Booker T are good, but they're not really the kind of people who you could have built a show around at that point.
Yeah, and Kane was 2 months off. You were missing a lot of pieces on Raw, I can assume.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't have anyone where you would be like, I need to see this guy. It doesn't matter what he's doing, I need to see him. Austin was a shell of his former self for the couple months he was there. It turned into Vince versus Flair for control of the company, and that went nowhere, of course. It wasn't well thought out. It was just boring. And then it turns into Triple H trying to emulate old school Ric Flair, which isn't going to get you anywhere either.
Yeah, I'd say
old school Ric Flair
done a better job of that.
Yeah, old school Ric Flair worked in the old school. That's not going to work very well though when you're live 52 weeks a year.
Yeah, and how would you say about the latter half of the year? You know, once everything was in place, you had Triple H, you had Shawn Michaels in play, and all that. How do you think everything turned out? I mean,
in a weird way, that yeah, it started to find its footing. But the problem is the footing was really bad. That's when you get into. For those of you who have never heard this name before, do yourself a favor and never look this up ever. That's when you get into the Katie Vick era.
Ooh, that was going to be.
For those of you who don't remember, I'm going to say this story once and never again. Katie Vick is the woman that Kane apparently killed, and then Triple H simulated sex with a dead mannequin.
Yeah, that was a dark time.
It might be the lowest point in the history of wrestling. If not, I don't know what is. 'Cause I can't think of anything that actually tops that. But the rest of the year was terrible. There were some moments, but for the most part, it was just let's all do everything we can for the sake of Triple H, and make sure Shawn looks good at the same time. Because if there's one person who needs a major rub, it's Shawn Michaels. Though the SummerSlam match is amazing. But yeah, it's just a big mess where they decide to focus on Triple H, and Triple H is not the most interesting character in the world.
Yeah, so you say that like it's a total mess. What do you think were some of the highlights of the year, though? Like, do you remember any match that stuck to you on Raw? Any particular character or something like that?
On Raw, Brock Lesnar debuted there, so that helps a lot. He was. At that point, he was still just basically doing the Brock Smash thing before that became a big deal. But he was. I remember watching him and thinking that's not something you see very often. There's the Jeff Hardy Undertaker ladder match, which is very fondly remembered. I'm not sure how well it holds up. It's very, very fondly remembered. Let's see. The worst part is it's kind of hard to come up with anything that was very good from that year. There's TLC Las Vegas, which WWE actually said was the best Raw match of the first 10 years. That's laughable at best, but it is an entertaining match. It runs longer than it needs to, and it's not like you would get a lot of TLC matches or gimmicks that big on Raw in general for free. The best thing about that is, well, not best, but Bubba Ray Dudley gets a heck of a concussion in that match and doesn't remember a thing of it. Apparently he was telling Chris Jericho during the match that he needed to do well because his mom was watching.
I'm trying to remember who were the participants in that match, because I think it was Chris Jericho, Christian, Spike and Bubba Dudley, and I'm blanking out on the rest. There was two more.
It was supposed to be Kane. It was supposed to be Kane and I think Hurricane, but Hurricane was knocked out. And then Christian and Chris Jericho, and then the other team you mentioned.
Okay.
And that was at the same time when the Dudleys were split up, and no one's really quite sure why. Presumably because Edge and Christian did so well with it. And clearly Bubba and Devon are perfectly good singles wrestlers, as history has shown.
SmackDown was just the weirdest, bland character I've seen in my life. Like, he's supposed to be this preacher, but he never does any actual preaching. Never got it.
Yeah, and then the problem comes down to when you have this mammoth machine that shows up with him. There's only so much you're going to be able to... The focus is only going to be on Devon for so long when you have someone who looks like Batista.
Yeah, that was a weird period for them, but... on top of all that you mentioned, there was also a period, at least specifically to Raw, there was a period where titles were getting unified left and right. Like, every title became the Intercontinental title, basically.
Yeah, the idea behind that was Triple H wanted to be the champion of champions. The original idea, allegedly, was going to be that the Intercontinental title would become the title of Raw, while the WWE title, the Undisputed title, would become the title of SmackDown. And Triple H was going to become Intercontinental Champion, and then he decided that was just not right for him, so they brought in the World Heavyweight Championship, which is not the WCW title, never has been the WCW title, and never will be, despite what WWE tries to say. It was pulled out of a briefcase by Eric Bischoff in 2002, and that's where it started.
You mean it doesn't follow that lineage from 1916 or whatever year it was?
Well, it wouldn't follow that anyway. The WCW title was created in 1991. The NWA title goes back to 1948. The NWA title and WCW title were different things. If you really, really, really want to stretch, you would be able to say 1991, and that's at best. Anything beyond that is complete nonsense.
Yeah, I believe that was in the time period that Ric Flair was on Raw and had the big gold belt with him, and WCW had to create a new title, so that's pretty much where the world title started, right?
No, your timing's a little bit off. Basically, WCW didn't have a world title. They used the NWA title, but then by that was in 91 was when it started. I believe it was February 11th, 91. The NWA basically stopped meaning anything whatsoever, and only the NWA thought the NWA had any value. WCW created its own world title, and for a while, the titles were officially separate, but it was held by the same person and represented by one belt. So officially, Flair was WCW and NWA champion, but he only ever had the WCW title. Eventually they split. It's a really long, complicated story. But to say that the WCW title has any kind of lineage beyond 91 is just incorrect. Basically, all they did was they used the same belt design, which, if you go by that, the NWA Virginia Heavyweight Championship has the same lineage as the Intercontinental title. For a while, they used a mock Intercontinental title for their belt. It'd be that level of a connection.
Okay, I gotcha. And
there is absolutely no lineage. There is no lineage. It's 2002. Being realistic, the World Heavyweight Championship started in 2002. If you really want to stretch and just be wrong about it, you can go to 91. Other than that, it's nonsense.
Yeah, I guess in a few years we'll be talking about how the Universal title shares the lineage with the WWE title.
Yeah, it would be like that. The Universal title, it's the same basic thing of what you just said. They were around at the same period. They might look alike, but that's about all they have for the same. That's all the similarities they have.
Okay, so that would be your highlight. I'm guessing your low light would obviously be Katie Vick.
Yes, that's the low light possibly of the history of wrestling.
Man, and do you think there were any sort of stars like shining in the mid card area? Like I know you mentioned Jeff Hardy, but fortunately, he didn't quite live up after the last match.
Yeah, Jeff wasn't ready for that yet. He was getting there, but it wasn't meant to be yet. As far as stars from the mid card, Van Dam was really starting to get hot around then, and then he was sacrificed to Triple H because, well, he was getting hot around then. Honestly, not many. There's not a lot of options in there, and that's very sad. Hurricane was starting to get kind of good. He really started pushing the superhero comedy stuff. That was entertaining. But honestly, not much. It's very much a case of just try to get in what you can, and just nothing was really clicking around that time because it was so focused on Triple H and whatever Shawn would do starting around SummerSlam. The Triple H and Shawn stuff leading up to SummerSlam was very good, but other than that, it's just not there. Everything went over to SmackDown.
Yeah, that was a weird period, but you got all this chronicled in your book, and I just want you to throw out the information for the people listening.
Sure. It's on. You can get all the information on my website, kbwrestlingreviews.com. Click on. I have a tab there. It's like KB's books or KB on Kindle, something like that. It's got all the information there. It has also all the books that I've written. I've got, I believe, 25 ebooks, something like 12 or 13 paperbacks, featuring artwork by some guy whose name I can't remember at the moment. They're as cheap as I can make them on Amazon. Also, if you want to just go to Amazon, it's KB's Raw 2002. It'll be under my real name, which is Thomas Hall. But yeah. So it's all right there. All the information you can need on it.
Now, you're here in this... I think this is the first time I actually have you on my actual website. Like, normally we would do podcasts, but they would be, like, independent. And I just want you to, I don't know, talk a little about yourself, like, your story, like, how you ended up doing these reviews, because they indirectly, like, basically I spun off from you, and I'm 4 years removed from celebrating my second anniversary doing this website.
Yeah. Well, it starts off with WrestleMania 25. The host and I both met on the WrestleZone forums, which you guys should all come there because it's awesome, or at least it was, still is to the most part. And WrestleMania 25 was coming up, and since that's a big milestone, I thought I would go back and listen to and review every pay-per-view or every WrestleMania ever, and just write up a review of each. These things, they were pretty well received, and so I decided I would do all of the big four pay-per-views, and then I did In Your House over the summer between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. And as is my obsessive personality, I decided I might as well do every WWF pay-per-view ever, and then that turned into every WCW pay-per-view ever, TNA, and ECW. It took me about 8 years or so, but I finally did it. And now I review pretty much every show all week. I review Raw, SmackDown, NXT, 205 Live, Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor. Pretty much every weekly show, aside from New Japan, I pretty much review every weekly show. I've reviewed every pay-per-view, every 3-hour pay-per-view ever. I reviewed old school stuff, random TV shows. I've got reviews dating back to the early 1960s and as recent as last night's Impact. Just every possible thing. I've seen over 50,000 wrestling matches in my time. I've reviewed something like 2,500 shows. This is what I do. This is my life. I am completely and utterly obsessed with wrestling. My honeymoon was going to WrestleMania. I met my wife on a wrestling forum. This is my life.
Yeah, and you live from it successfully too, might I add.
I do. I write up news articles on WrestlingRumors.net. Check us out over there. I do that. I sell my books. I get ad revenue from my site. This is my full-time job. I watch and review wrestling for a living. Period. I don't go anywhere. I work from home every day, and this is how I make my living.
Man, dude, I gotta say, that is the life. Because, you know, I spend so much time myself watching wrestling. It's a fun. You learn so much, and man, I don't know. I don't even know how to put it to words. It's just awesome.
It is. It's every day growing up, my family would always ask me when I would grow out of this wrestling stuff, and I just never really did. I worked. One of the big Amazon fulfillment centers is, there's only a handful of them nationwide. One of them is about 6 minutes down the street from my house. And I worked there for a little bit, and I was literally counting the seconds in the day until I could get back home and review more wrestling. And finally someone suggested, why don't you, make a website and monetize it? And I did, and it took a while to get going, but after that I never really looked back. I don't know how long I'll be able to do this, but I'm doing it every day that I can, and I'm loving it. This is all I've ever wanted to do, and it turns out that being able to tell you the cards in order for the first 14 or so WrestleManias actually has it can be lucrative.
Yeah, so there you have it, people. If you ever wondered what it's like to you can be a wrestling fan and do something about it. You don't necessarily have to be sitting on your bench, because, dude, since I cover Puerto Rico, a lot of the time, so many people criticize, oh, you people criticize too much product and this and that and this and that. It's there is a benefit to this. This isn't just us, just barking for people to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's when you actually get into it, I've been to 3 out of the last 4 WrestleManias. I've already got my hotel room booked for New Orleans next year. You get to meet, just getting to go to these shows every year. You get to do some amazing stuff. I got to go to a thing called WrestleCon this year. If you ever get to go to WrestleMania weekend, do yourself a favor and go to WrestleCon. It is the most fun you will ever have. I was there for about 4 hours. By my count, I met over 120 wrestlers. Everyone ranging from Jerry Lawler to Steven Richards to Mil Muertes. He was there. To
my boy,
Jim Duggan, Jake Roberts, Lex Luger. I'm talking world champions who you can just walk. I walked up to Rob Van Dam and talked to him for 5 minutes. You can just randomly chat with people, and a lot of them are selling merchandise, and you get to see which wrestlers are jerks and which wrestlers will just sit there and talk to you all day. And it's kind of fascinating just to go and get to see all these people just sitting there at tables talking to you. I mean, where else are you going to get to meet Demolition and the Steiner brothers within about 30 feet of each other?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And, I wanted to steer into modern day topics, too, if I could. There was this thing I saw on Monday Night Raw. Raw had this great segment involving The Miz, Roman Reigns, John Cena, and Samoa Joe. And it was supposed to set up the main event, correct? And during the segment, you had Miz do this basically a shoot on his situation at SummerSlam. You had John Cena just being John Cena, just balls of greatness, and Samoa Joe just being a badass. And something stuck out to me about the segment, because you got Roman Reigns, too. And, I got nothing against Roman Reigns. I think he's an awesome wrestler. But it just stuck out to me why people dislike him. And you've got these 3 awesome characters, and then you've got Roman Reigns just there, blank stare the whole segment. Okay.
This is how I would sum it up. You have Miz, who is the Hollywood guy who has worked his way up from nothing to being someone who, if he holds the Intercontinental title for about 6 more months, he'll have held it for more combined days than anyone in history. Think about that one for a second. This guy who was supposed to be nothing might hold that, and also could hold the record, could set the record for most Intercontinental title reigns. That's quite impressive. You have John Cena, who is the biggest star of this generation. You have Samoa Joe, who is this killing machine. What is Roman Reigns' character?
I'd be hard-pressed to tell you.
Yeah, he doesn't really have one. He doesn't really have... Roman Reigns' character is just... He is the hand-picked star of WWE. We don't... Like, what can you tell me about Reigns' background? He debuted with the Shield, then the Shield split, he became a big single star. Am I leaving anything out? He doesn't... There's nothing... Like, we know he has a daughter. That's really about it. He has no... There's no depth to him. And you need more than just... I'm Roman Reigns, I'm from a famous wrestling family, my cousin is The Rock. You need more than that, and we've never been offered anything else. There's nothing to cling to with him. And it shows every time he's in there with some larger-than-life personalities like Cena or Miz, who have these detailed character histories and all this stuff that they've been built up on. Reigns doesn't have that, and it shows very badly.
Yeah, I mean, you put him in the ring with all these interesting people, and then you see how he interacts with them, and he's there. That's all you can say about him.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the beginning of WrestleMania 30 with Hogan, Austin, and Rock, you can look at each one of those individual people and see something about them just based on the way they talk, the way they look. You can see something about them. Reigns is just this guy with long hair in riot gear. I don't know anything about him. And that becomes a problem when you're supposed to care about him and be invested in him and watch his matches and see what he does.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not even a bad wrestler or anything. He's actually pretty good. I mean, he has great matches, but there's no reason to connect to him.
Yeah, and you need more... To be the top guy, you need more than that. You need to have... I need a reason to care about you.
And you compare him to, say, Braun Strowman. If I could do that for a minute. What do you think are differences between Braun and Strowman? Because they are basically the same character in a sense. It's just as one is a heel, one is babyface, and Strowman just gets to run through everyone.
Yeah, the difference with that is Strowman is this monster who just wrecks things. That's his character. He's a monster who wrecks things. That alone is more than I can tell you about Reigns. And that's not good considering Strowman's been around in this character for what, less than a year? And he's already more detailed than Reigns.
Yeah, he's been 2 years on the main roster too.
Yeah, and that's unthinkable that he's already more defined than Reigns.
Yeah, but it's just... I don't know, I feel like WWE has an issue when it comes to characters, like creating characters. Like, you look at Roman Reigns, and then you look at SmackDown, and you look at Baron Corbin, who's another guy who's having a few issues of his own. Like, right now, we've seen just him going through... Basically, he's being punished on television, basically. That's what we're seeing with him.
Yeah, which happens way too often.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but there's between this whole week, we've seen 3 people punished on television. We'd have Enzo, Baron Corbin, and Emma. Yeah, and you have Emma who is being punished basically for bearing WWE's great and mighty creative. Which, when the women's division on Raw is basically 3 people at this point, that's pretty dumb. You really, it's Sasha, Alexa, and Jax. Mickie James is there, and Dana Brooke are there, but really, they're just to fill out numbers. Why in the world would you crush someone like Emma, who already had to put up with the Emmalina nonsense early
earlier this year, and that was ridiculous. And then you have Enzo, who, well, I wouldn't mind feeding him to a wood chipper, though I would have to apologize to the wood chipper for making it touch something like that.
Man,
I can't.
That's harsh.
Stand it. I can't stand Enzo. As soon I used to get a good kick out of him, but then as soon as he split from Cass, it really does kind of show that he does nothing but run his mouth and say the same thing every single week. I'm very glad they moved him to 205 Live, but unfortunately that probably means he'll still be on Raw as well. So now I have to put up with him on 2 shows.
Well, it's kind of weird, too, because, I mean, that's a show that is... Man, like, 205 is a mess, but at the very least, you could say it has good matches, but now you put Enzo there, and it's like, I don't know what to say about Enzo on 205.
I'm split on it, because, for one thing, I hate it, because 205 Live, you have Neville, whoever Neville is feuding with, about 10 miles, and then everybody else. If you watch that show, Neville is completely on his own planet compared to everybody else. And now, this past week, for instance, Cedric Alexander and Grand Metalik fought Tony Nese and Drew Gulak in a very good match. It's one of the best matches 205 Live has produced. But Enzo debuts, and he is presumably the top contender now to the Cruiserweight title. For what? He hasn't done anything. It makes me wonder, why does this show need to exist if we're just going to fill in spots on it with good matches and characters who have no chance of advancement? I understand why Enzo is being pushed, because he's instantly the biggest star and the biggest personality on the show, because the rest of the roster has no charisma whatsoever, and Enzo has more charisma than he knows what to do with. He's just kind of, I don't know, slime.
Well, I don't know. Truth be told, 205 Live to me is such a weird show, because you've got all this talent that, they've proved they could be incredible wrestlers. And
yes,
this show limits them so incredibly. Like, you look at Tony Nese. Every time I see Tony Nese, I want to grab him by the throat and just choke him. Because this is a guy who is so ridiculously talented. He used to do a cartwheel in the ring apron. And now all he does is pose, and he tells everyone, I am better than you because I have abs, and then loses. And it's just a case what are you doing with this guy?
I actually like Nese. I like this new character.
I used to love him, but now, every time I see him pose, it's just dead air to me.
Yeah, there's talented guys. I don't know what they're doing with Cedric Alexander, who is as smooth in the ring as anyone I've seen in a long time. And then, other than that, though, you have Brian Kendrick calling Jack Gallagher a clown all the time. I don't know why that's supposed to be interesting.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Kendrick jumps from one bad feud.
And then, yeah, here's Enzo to now be the top face of the show, despite all these other people with all the talent around him.
Yeah, I mean, you got Grand Metalik, who's just... Metalik used to be so awesome in CMLL and New Japan, and nowadays, you'd be hard-pressed to see him just jump off the ropes once every, 2 months.
Well, he's been doing it more. I've always liked Grand Metalik since I saw him in the Cruiserweight Classic. He was one of the guys that kind of stood out to me. He does the whole walking on the ropes thing really well now. He can put on good stuff. He looked very good this past week. Now that he's finally gotten out of the nightmare that is main event.
He was there?
Oh, he was on main event for about 2 months straight.
Good grief.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they had to replace, for probably 4 months on main event, it was some combination of Jinder Mahal, Curtis Axel, and Bo Dallas. Now that one of them is suddenly the WWE, and the other two are a low-level tag team, they need some replacements. Metalik was that guy for a while. Metalik, and now it's Lince Dorado's on there almost every week. You'll see them they have perfectly watchable matches. I mean, they're on main event, so how far can they really go? But, I mean, aside from being SmackDown World Champion. But, yeah, Metalik was on there for a while. He does his rope walking stuff and a good-looking springboard splash. But, yeah, he's very good for just, here's your luchador. His gimmick is that he can walk the ropes. Next.
Yeah, that's about as far as they go with him, and I don't know. It's just they do so much with these guys, and they do hardly anything with them. But you know, you mentioned Jinder Mahal. For one thing I want to get to Jinder Mahal because this guy, he is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still wondering, like, is WWE getting money from India? I don't think they are.
If they are, I don't know where it would be from, unless they're getting like a good, unless they're one of their TV deals is coming up over there. I do find it interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if it's because TNA just had their trip to Mumbai earlier this year. WWE has been known to try to stomp out people getting international footing wherever they can. I mean, you saw them sign Drew McIntyre earlier this year as soon as it was rumored that he might go to that World of Sport show.
Yeah, I mean, the whole UK division
whereas
is because
now
of the World of Sports show. We're still wondering when that show's going to show up at the network.
Oh yeah. I think they gave it like a 10-episode order. It was supposed to tape in June. We're still waiting on that. Then you have, but yeah, just I don't get the Mahal push. Okay, I'll go with this. Mahal is trying. He is legitimately trying, and it's not as bad as I was expecting. It's still bad, but this could be far worse. The problem that I see with Mahal is on his best day, on the best match he's ever had, he is average. That is as good as Mahal is going to get. He has a good look. He's an average promo. He wrestles average matches. He has a below average finisher. That's the SmackDown World Champ. That's the same champion as Bruno Sammartino right now. It's the same title that Bruno held. That's not working.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying, and that's true, but you look at what WWE does, like, at least with their booking, and it just it comes off like lazy, man. Like, you've seen every single match he has on pay-per-view has finished the same exact way, except the Punjabi Prison. Go, oh my God, I don't want to talk about that thing. But, you know, the Singh brothers who changed their name mysteriously, we never got an explanation for that. They distract. Mahal hits his Cobra Clutch Slam, the Colossus, whatever it's called, and he wins. That has been all three of his pay-per-view matches.
Yeah, and that's not good enough. When you have AJ Styles and Kevin Owens and until this week John Cena and Shinsuke Nakamura, Sami Zayn even, these guys can have exciting, fun matches, and we're getting Jinder Mahal. I mean, allegedly, this was originally supposed to be Rusev's push. I don't know if he was going to win the title, but he was supposed to be the one who was going to get the shot at Orton. And it evolved into this for the sake of trying to get the Indian market. I don't know if Rusev was going to win the belt, but it would have been, at least Rusev has a history. He's won some stuff before. Mahal is, until this year, Mahal was most famous for losing in the first ever NXT title match. That's not much of a resume.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, Rusev at least has diversity in his personality.
Yeah, but now his big claim to fame is, I lost to Randy Orton in 9 seconds. That's his big reward for this. He gets to be the feud that allows Orton to recover from facing Jinder Mahal.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw his tweet. It came out, like, I think half an hour before we came here live. But Rusev's basically just thanking WWE. It comes off like he's saying goodbye, but, you know, Rusev being Rusev, like, it could very well just be a joke. I mean, right under it, he's talking about mixing egg whites with egg holes.
Yeah, Rusev is the worst part. Is Rusev is one of the funniest guys you'll see if you ever watch him on Total Divas or on Southpaw Regional. Which, if you guys haven't watched it yet, please watch Southpaw Regional Wrestling on the YouTube channel, WWE's YouTube. Oh my goodness, it is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Big Bart. Big highlight.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, they just recently released 6 more episodes last Friday.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen those yet, if nothing else, Renee Young as the hottest '80s chick ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no wonder Chet Sherfield got depressed.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Rusev can be funny. He can do. The problem is Rusev's character. I'm a foreign monster. You can only go so far with that, and Rusev passed that point about 2 years ago. He can speak English well enough that you can do other stuff with him. I don't know why they won't. At this point, they'd probably be better off just reuniting him with Lana, because Lana isn't exactly doing anything.
No.
But when you're supporting Tamina, you can kind of see where your career is going.
Yeah, that weird storyline just came out of nowhere. I still don't get what they're trying to do there.
Trying to waste time.
Yeah, but anyway, man, let's start wrapping this thing up. And I just wanted to ask you before we headed out, like, what are some of your weekly highlights when it comes to watching all these shows? Because, you know, I know you watch so much a week, and I just wanted to ask you, like, which shows do you think are like the best every week?
NXT is still amazing.
Yeah, that's my personal favorite.
Lucha Underground when they're actually trying and advancing their storylines, which are some of the most creative things I've ever seen. Lucha Underground feels like an actual alternative, which is a very nice thing to have every now and then. I get a kick out of watching WWE completely troll us with Roman Reigns, which is some of the best unintentional comedy you'll ever see.
Do you think they're actually trolling us?
They are going to push him, no matter what.
Just oblivious.
I think for a while they were oblivious, and now I think it is just trolling.
Yeah.
I know Vince is considered out of touch. I do not accept the idea that Vince McMahon doesn't realize what's going on. I don't accept that. I think he knows what he's doing, and I think at this point he's doing it just to laugh at us. We're going to be watching on the network anyway, so he's got our money, and if he can drive everybody crazy, so be it.
Yeah, I think,
and I find it hilarious.
I think the Royal Rumble would be perfect example to highlight that. Because when he came out number 30, like that was just the biggest trolling I've ever seen.
And did I mention that the Rumble this year this coming year is in Philadelphia?
Yeah, they're going to be back in Philadelphia, so oh my god.
And where do you think WrestleMania is going? Because if your answer is anything other than Reigns versus Lesnar 2, you haven't been paying enough attention.
Yeah, and man, I don't know. I'm not really interested in that match. I don't know. How about you?
Well, that's the point. No one really is, but that's what we're getting because this time for sure it'll be the thing that makes Reigns the next Austin.
Yeah, fourth try is the whatever you said. I forgot.
Yeah, the fourth time is the Roman Reigns effect, is what you say.
Yeah, 4 times the charm, something like that. I don't know.
I mean, they put him with Undertaker. They put him with Undertaker. They put him with Rock. They put him with Bryan. They put him with or over all those people. Nothing's worked. This time for sure, it's gotta work.
Yeah, and it'll be great when he's giving us that blank stare.
Yeah, but that's the WWE we live in, and I just find it amusing at this point. I don't even. It's just this is what we're doing, and I get a good kick out of it.
Well, That's all the time we're going to have for today. KB, plug your website. Plug everything you got, man. Like, let everybody know where they can find you and all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do live coverage of SmackDown, NXT, Impact, any takeover or pay-per-view. I do live coverage of those on WrestlingRumors.net. I also write a new. We do not do clickbait articles, or at least we try not to. If a name returns and it's some mid-carder or not some major name is back, we'll say a former champion or whatever is back. We're not going to make it up like Billy Gunn is the biggest star in the world. I promise. I'm also over at my own site at kbwrestlingreviews.com. I've got hundreds of reviews up there, like to the early 60s to as recent as this week's main event and Impact, so less than 24 hours old. I put up new stuff pretty much daily. My thoughts on stuff, reviews, news. If there's anything that's not up there that you'd like me to take a look at, just drop me a comment on there. I'll add it to my list. Granted, it takes me several years to get through my list at times. I believe I still owe you some reviews from like 2014.
Actually, no. You got through them.
Yeah. No, I've still got some AAA shows listed on my list that I promised I would do for you.
Really? At this point, I've forgotten about them.
Yeah. Well, my list is... the problem is when you do so many weekly shows, and now I do news stories, you kind of just forget that they're there. And I haven't really touched my list in forever. I've still promised to do Triple Mania 2013 for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're coming up on 25 this Saturday.
Yeah. And I don't even know if the show exists anymore. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. I apologize. Sin Limitate. November 2013. Actually. I told you I would review that.
That's I think that's Johnny Mundo versus Alberto Patron, which I thought it was an amazing match.
That's on page 3 of my list. To give you an idea of how long this might actually take. And the list is 3 pages long. Just with all the shows I'm supposed to. Oh, and you wanted me to do Rey de Reyes of 2013 as well.
I did. Man, I don't even know why I asked for that one, but okay.
Yeah. You requested these things. It was something like we were doing something on the forums. You might remember when we had the posters tournament on there, and I bribed you for votes.
Oh, okay.
That
was the payment.
This is the payoff for those. I'm still trying to get to those.
Jeez.
That's how slow I am at this stuff sometimes.
Well, I did try to torture you and send you WWC, and you actually watched it.
Yes, I did. And if you and I are ever in the same area, I'm going to hurt you for that.
Yeah, it's gotten worse.
That's not possible.
Oh, it's possible, all right.
No, it's not. Stop lying to me. No, it's not.
Dude, I got to cover it every week. I am blown away by how worse it got. You don't want to see Ray Jr., Gonzalez Jr. You don't want to see that, man.
By Ray Jr., you don't mean Dominic, do you?
No, it's like Reagan's. Actually, now that I remember, the reviews I had you do were his debut, Ray Gonzalez Jr.'s debut, when Carlos Colon attacked him at his own store.
Oh, Ray Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grocery store bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they aired twice.
They do that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, just so you know, Triple Mania is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th on my list of shows to do.
You'll get there eventually, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, man, I want to thank you so much for doing the show. Like, you help me out a lot all the time, and of course, like I said, you're basically the inspiration for this website. And I just wanted you to chat and, talk about your book, plug it away and all that. Like, I've had it plugged there since you published it.
I appreciate that, and it means a lot to me to say that I've inspired someone. That's when I was down in Orlando for Mania this year. A fan stopped me because he recognized me. That hearing things like that makes my head spin. I cannot possibly fathom that that there are people out there who actually read my stuff, and then I get to meet them, and then having someone say that I've inspired them to do this stuff, it blows my mind, and I can't really wrap my head around it. But it's very cool to hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta say it's better than my experience. Like, my experience, I've had people pissed off at me for the stuff I say.
Yeah. A guy that, for lack of a better term, my inspiration, the guy I kind of model myself after, he used to be a big deal. Well, he still is a big deal to a degree. Apparently, he used to get emails from Edge and Chris Jericho yelling at him about his ratings for their matches. So, this is nothing new.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
It is.
But I think that's it for us, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, the other day I found out that... Yep.
So, you said your website, kbwrestlingreviews.com. That's where they can find you you had 7 updates today, I think. 7 different articles and stuff like that today.
Yeah, that's a busy day for me, but if there is a wrestling show on that week, I will be reviewing it. I haven't missed an episode of Raw since the show debuted. I haven't missed an Impact in at least 8 years. I'm going to be there doing them until people stop reading them, and then even still after that. So yeah, if there's pretty much any kind of wrestling you could ever want covered, I've got at least something on there. House shows, pay-per-views, foreign wrestling, pretty much whatever.
Yeah, well, ladies, gentlemen, we'll be seeing you next time, and thanks for stopping by and giving us a listen. See you next time.